And we're back with the Dr. Joe Show, version 2.0.
Version 2.0 in studio. Here we are. All right. Version 2.1, one of the things we started off with was my guest, Mark Stiles of Stiles Law. And at that point, I said, why don't you come and talk about the psychology of real estate? One of the most important parts of many human beings is their home domain. How do you create and purchase a home domain? So, Mark Stiles, let's go back in time.
Well, if you recall, what we did is we actually talked about the IM and real estate.
Yes.
Right? So how it plays a part in people's emotions and their psychology of buying and selling. And, you know, so you have so many different people, and it just speaks to your approach with the IM, because, you know, maybe you have someone who's lived in a home for 45 years, 50 years, and there's the memories and the stress that goes along with disattaching from those memories, right? Or you have the first-time home buyer who has their life savings built up in an account, and they're about to deploy all of that so that they could have a home. And we had a lot of fun talking about that. And at the core, not a lot has changed, but in the industry, a lot has absolutely changed in the 3 years that we spoke. And 3 years ago, when we were talking about real estate, it was a traditional market. You know, we would consider it a normal market. There was not a lot of distress. There was a healthy balance of supply and demands. If someone wanted to buy a house, there was typically a house available for them to buy. That is not the case right now.
Really?
Yeah, there is a large imbalance between supply and demand.
So how did that happen over 3 years? What was the evolution of that?
Well, I think COVID had a lot to do with it.
How's that?
So the demand went up exponentially with COVID because people realized, you know, they're living in their house. They've been in this house, you know, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're realizing this isn't the house necessarily that they want, right? Maybe they're living in the city and they're confined to certain, you know, small square footage, or, you know, confined to, you know, a mass population that they weren't comfortable with during COVID. And a lot of people realized, I can work remotely.
Right.
So if I can work remotely, then I can work anywhere I want.
Anywhere they want.
So I can go get more land, or I can get a bigger house, or I can get a smaller house, or I can get a house on the beach. So a lot of people wanted to make a move, but then on the flip side, people were afraid to move. People were afraid to have people in their homes. They were anxious about having other people in their homes. So
Wait. So they were anxious about actually showing their homes to other people?
Yeah.
Which is a part of the tradition. I mean, if you're about to invest in a home, you want to go inside it, not just look outside.
Absolutely.
So that's fascinating.
Yeah. So the demand outpaced the supply. So you have people who were very anxious to move. They identified certain places they wanted to be, but the people who lived in those places weren't moving out.
Fascinating.
So when a piece of property came to the market, there were multiple, and there still are, because there's scarcity in the marketplace right now. So multiple people would bid to a point where it's borderline auction environments right now. So the anxiety levels are outrageous right now from the buyer side.
And from the person who's selling, though, don't they then have to become a buyer? I mean, if they're selling their home.
That's the ultimate problem, and that's where the freezing is happening, where the inventory gets frozen, because I would love to sell my house right now, says the seller of a home. I'm going to get the most money I would ever get for it. It's the perfect time, but where do I go?
Right.
I don't know, you know, if it's this, there's this much demand for my house, then there's going to be that same or more demand for the house that I want. In certain situations, it works for people. So if somebody has a second home, then they can go live in their second home. They can sell their house, or maybe they're moving out of state or they take a leap of faith. But a lot of people are risk averse. So when they don't want to be homeless, at the end of the day, the folks don't want to be homeless. So they don't move and they freeze. And then the demand gets even more accelerated and the scarcity is there where prices are going to continue to accelerate until there's a tempering of that imbalance.
So I'm just curious if we can just personalize this a bit. So how does that affect people who are in the real estate market, that's their livelihood is selling homes, and real estate lawyers?
So great question. When it comes to the real estate professionals, it's an interesting time because there's a have and have-nots, right? The folks that are getting the listings, those that are getting the sellers side of the transaction are doing very well, because if you can get people to sell the property, there's multiple people looking to buy it.
Right.
Those that are trying to help buyers find these homes are struggling, and it's been super challenging for them. So it's been a grind for the real estate industry for the entire COVID. I mean, it was, from when COVID first hit back in February and March of 2020, when it was uncertain of how anyone was going to operate and do anything in person, they had to figure it out. And they did a great job as a community, but it made their job 10 times harder, right? So their typical marketing process would be to pre-market the property, do all of the photos, do all of what, presenting the property in its best possible look, putting it out to the general public, hosting open houses, bringing people in, bringing big groups of people in, bringing groups of real estate agents in and hosting them, and gatherings, right?
I remember you invited me to one of those to talk, and it was fun.
Right. So those were eliminated when COVID hit the United States.
Absolutely.
So they had to, figure out how to do this, and they did. They time blocked and had scheduled appointments to show it one at a time, but they were, it almost seems like years ago now that you think about it, but are we putting on booties? Are we making people wear gloves? Are we, how are we going to protect our client, the seller? And so they transitioned through that, and then they, continued through grinding and trying to bring out more inventory, because a lot of people wanted to move around. A lot of people wanted to buy real estate. Interest rates started to drop because the rest of the economy was struggling. So in a normal economy, they try to balance things out, and one of the ways they do that is by lowering interest rates to give homeowners the ability to refinance, to lower their interest rate, lower their monthly obligations, so that they don't become dependent on the government or anything like that. It allows them to reset their monthly mortgage obligations. Sometimes people can pull money out of the equity of their home in a situation like that, where they could create a rainy day fund, or maybe have it available for the immediate needs. So interest rates were lower, creating more demand. More people had more buying power, so they had the ability to buy more house. It opens up their mind to other opportunities. What can we do? How can we utilize these low interest rates? Maybe we can buy a second home. So the buyer demand just 10x accelerated to a point where the supply of homes wasn't there. And then lumber costs went up in the supply chain, so new construction was not necessarily an option for a lot of people. So it's been an interesting time, but really, really proud to be part of the industry, because they did such an amazing job throughout all of this and didn't stop. They couldn't stop, and they continue to work hard for their clients, and they're still working really hard because of this really wild imbalance. And it's interesting to look forward to see what is to come of this, and how to kind of melt this frozen inventory a little bit and loosen it up.
So what do you anticipate? What is the post-COVID real estate world going to look like?
It depends.
Always does.
So that's the legal answer. It really depends because real estate is so hyper local. It depends where you are. I truly believe that in certain communities, the sought after communities, the high demand communities are going to continue to accelerate because of the scarcity. If they're not creating new product, if they're not creating new inventory, new homes in those areas, but people still want those homes, it's only going to increase the values of those homes. So in those communities, I see years of appreciation still. And people, everyone has their opinions on, are we in a bubble? Is this bubble, when's the bubble going to burst? In these certain sought after communities, not anytime soon at all. Now, compare that to some of the neighborhoods that aren't as affluent or aren't as sought after, or more communities of frontline workers who jobs may have been eliminated because of COVID. Those areas are going to get hurt, and they're going to get hurt bad. And that's going to be a really interesting time where you have one subsect that's on a skyrocket acceleration, and then another subsect 15 miles down the road, 7 miles down the road, bottoming out.
But hasn't there been a trend where some of these neighborhoods in the past have been, I don't know, do they call it gentrified or something like that, where groups will move in and displace people because they can, because the housing is less expensive, less money coming in. Am I missing something here? Am I making myself clear? So there's a neighborhood that, as you describe, may be poorer than another. Would the rich people come in and just buy those places out?
For what purpose?
Well, sometimes greed has a real motivation when it comes to
So
buying
let's talk
things.
through greed, right? So what would be the benefit of buying that property? To then rent to the same person?
Good question.
I will say that one of the big asset classes that's going to have a lot of success for real estate investors, for those who are looking to purchase real estate, will be in those asset classes where they're government subsidized. So for somebody who is looking to, in essence, partner with the government, right, build housing stock for folks that the government subsidizes, that's going to be a big industry in the years to come. There's no question about it, because the government will be subsidizing a lot of people in those areas. But those prices will probably drop pretty dramatically before the investors swoop in and decide that it makes sense for them. And I don't know if that's greed. I think there'll be a lot of really authentic real estate investors who are doing it for a good moral purpose, and creating housing stock is a great purpose. You create homes for people, and the government supplies a check every month, so it works on the spreadsheets. And if they deliver a good product, they treat people well, treat them like customers instead of less thans, then it's a great business to be in.
So even though the process of buying a home or selling a home can increase anxiety, having a home, a safe place to be, is one's nest, and decreases anxiety. And then you can start building your home domain and spread out into the social domain, the IC, your biological domain calms down. It's that is part of what we were talking about with the psychology of real estate. There's the buying of it. But once you're there and it's your home, you can feel hopefully safer and more invested in your community, in your neighborhood. And that's part of what we have right here at WATD and the Dr. Joe Show. We have a community And the real estate that our community buys, they're our sponsors. And they have purchased some real estate from us. So why don't we take a commercial break? And we'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show.
Stretch the canvas, brush with